Good morning. Thank you both very much for joining me. Today with me I have Gareth Lewis, who's our Head of STEM Research, and our Deputy Head of STEM Research, Dr. Liam Duffy. Let's start, Gareth, if I may, with STEM. What is STEM here at Haileybury? What's important? What does it look like? Tell us a bit about it.
Thank you. Yeah, so STEM at Haileybury is all about making sure that we make students into pupils have the ability to access science, technology, engineering and maths. But we want to do it in a way that allows them to work very closely with industry and academia. And so here at Haileybury, we fundamentally believe that any partnerships we develop through that route and any programs we develop must have at its core a partner from an academia or from an industry point of view, and so that students gain real skills.
So this is, let's say, we teach the core curriculum and we help our pupils with regards to preparation for exams, public exams, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But this is taking it to the next level, isn't it? That's fine, but this is really interesting. Let's go beyond the curriculum and find some really, really fascinating stuff to do.
Exactly. So the key thing we picked up on from the curriculum is that they still have to do all the set practicals, and we're very practically based, especially in science. However, we found that the outcomes of these practicals were quite predictable and prescribed, and so one of the biggest things we picked up on was generating these STEM research pathways where pupils work on a STEM-based project with an outcome that is probably unknown when you start.
Can you give us some examples of what kinds of things that might look like?
The first one, our jewel in the crown when we started, was something called STANEX, which has been well publicised and looks at genetic research with fruit flies in association with professors from Stanford University. We've now started to expand into VEX robotics, which really appeals to our students across the year groups and involves...
And for those that don't quite understand that,
it involves primarily coding and programming robots for competition, and they have to achieve certain tasks, and they get extra points if they can do the tasks non-remotely, so controlled on their own based on the code. So the pupils are really competitive with that.
And that's been really, really popular, I think, hasn't it?
Really popular, really successful. It only started really at the beginning of this year.
And all the way down through the school as well, is that right?
Yep, so it involves lower school as well, and we're slowly spreading into the higher years, actually going from the bottom up with that one, whereas STANEX is much more of the top down.
Okay, yeah, very interesting.
And then lastly, we've got CubeSat.
So that sounds fascinating. I mean, this is stuff that no other children really are likely to be looking at. Exactly. They're not going to be able to engage with this. We're really, really lucky to have this, both the STANEX, VEX, and now this. Let me bring Liam in if I can at that point, because this is a little bit of your kind of baby, isn't it?
Yeah. So essentially, CubeSat is kind of a platform that was introduced in 1999 by some academics in North America. And essentially, the point was to be able to increase the accessibility and sustainability of space to allow as many people to be involved in developing space technologies that would eventually be launched into space. So if you've got a kind of a major research project that's being done that requires a rocket, that's obviously incredibly expensive. But what the space industry and academics were finding is that there was often space left over on these rockets that wasn't being utilised. So by coming up with the CubeSat specification, there's this agreement between academics and the space industry that if everyone adheres to a certain set of rules on how this kind of technology is developed, then there's an opportunity for that to be included in missions.
So let's just be very clear what that means.
Yeah.
That means our pupils are creating something, potentially, that could end up in space.
Yeah, exactly. And so far the students have kind of planned the mission that they want to try and undertake. So we've tried to keep the mission as simple and cost effective as possible, which kind of forms part of the body of the research that kind of BAE is interested in. Because essentially it creates a model that other secondary schools or other kind of universities could follow to try to launch this technology into space. So our students have chosen to launch a miniature satellite that would have an optical payload on it or camera, and it would have the capability of taking pictures of the Earth for the purposes of environmental monitoring. So for example, they could measure deforestation rates or desertification rates and things like this.
Fascinating. So it's going a little bit beyond my sort of GCSE physics level here. This is stuff that is way beyond, in many ways, the curriculum, isn't it? And the requirements and the specifications are significant, aren't they, in terms
Yeah.
of what they're expecting of us to be able to create.
So in this respect, by getting the students to engage in CubeSat, they're trying to find answers to questions that don't necessarily have the answers yet. No one's developed this mission that they've developed before. So they're really having to pay close attention to what they're doing, because there's high stakes involved.
And are you having to give them lots of support, or do we get some support from elsewhere as well? How does that all fit together? Because generally they'll need to learn lots of new skills.
So we get a lot of our technical support, obviously, from BAE Systems engineers, and those lectures happen monthly on a Monday, and they focus on the different areas of the satellite that the students will need to plan. So essentially, as Gareth mentioned, the students are broken up into different groups, and they concentrate on different areas of the satellite.
And that's really interesting, and maybe come back to Gareth on this one as well, is that part of what we're doing here, I guess, is preparing people for later life. And that sounds to me like that's more of the kind of thing that in the real world, in real jobs, you're going to be doing.
What we're trying to do is create a platform for these pupils to essentially upskill their portfolios, their personal statements for university, and more importantly, give them the skills that the universities and obviously beyond into a job they would require.
And that's been, as far as I understand it, quite successful in terms of the STANEX project that you've done.
I think off the top of my head, it's about 75% of pupils have gone on to do a STEM-based degree at universities from Columbia in the US to Edinburgh and to the London-based universities, UCL. And we produced a lot of medics as well, in particular, on that course. And we hope to then replicate the same thing for our pupils doing the other courses and be giving them more of an option.
And let's talk a little bit as well about girls in STEM. It's a really, really important aspect of what we're trying to do, is encourage both boys and the girls to get involved. Is that something we've been successful on in both of those kind of projects, and maybe in the VEX as well?
Yeah, so again, we can't ignore the irony. There's three men discussing this. However, I'm a strong believer in women in STEM, and we've had, again, if I just take last year's statistics, we had 10 pupils go on and do medicine last year, or veterinary medicine. 9 of them were women. And across the STANEX role, again, it's approximately 75% are girls doing the STANEX program. And VEX Robotics, we have a boys and a girls team. And that's very important.
And there's lots of competition between the two,
exactly,
I'm sure.
Exactly, but competition drives up success in research and success in school. And
from
in the
a
CubeSat program
perspective, we've got 35% of female. And that's an incredibly high statistic, particularly in the physics and engineering sector.
Considering the national backdrop.
Really important, certainly in this co-educational world that we're in here, is that the opportunities are there for both boys and girls, which is fantastic. Is there an impact beyond the work they're doing in the school here?
So one of the core principles of this STEM research program is the research and trying to publish it. And we've had quite an adventure and put these pupils through the rigor to get them published in certain places. So the students in STANEX, we've had several of those pupils published in a genetics academic journal called G3. And with the CubeSat program, we're still looking at hopefully pushing our pupils into research there as well.
So it'd be fair to say that we should watch this space.
Yes.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was really nice to talk to you, and really fascinating programme. Good luck with it all, and I look forward to seeing how things develop.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.